Welcome to Meditation Mindfulness Journey, where we will explore the spiritual path together, learning about meditation and mindfulness, enlightenment and liberation. Every step on this journey is not just a personal discovery, but also an opportunity to experience the peace and clarity that sometimes takes a lifetime to find. Today, I'm excited to share with you a fascinating and profound topic, the 7 stages leading to enlightenment. Imagine a moment in your life when you feel all the tension and anxiety melt away, and in its place is an overwhelming sense of calm, a boundless freedom. A moment when you are fully awake, no more random thoughts or trivial distractions in life, just the true essence of who you are, merging with the universe. Doesn't that sound incredible? However, can we live in such a state forever? And what does it really take to achieve that deep stillness and enlightenment? These are questions many of us ask as we begin our spiritual journey. And the answer is not something that can be attained overnight. To experience profound states of enlightenment, we must go through 7 stages of spiritual development, a journey from initial awakening to full enlightenment. Why 7 stages? Why isn't the path to enlightenment just an immediate, sudden awakening, but rather a gradual process? And are you currently in any of these stages of your spiritual path? If you've ever felt like you're hitting an invisible wall, unsure of how to move forward, or if you've had mystical experiences that seem vague or hard to interpret, this video will provide you with a clear roadmap. A roadmap that not only helps you understand the stages of spiritual development, but also shows you what you need to do in order to move forward on your path. But be careful. The path to enlightenment isn't an easy one, and not everyone can go through all these stages smoothly. Many people experience confusion or even a crisis when they enter higher states of consciousness without the necessary psychological maturity and physical preparation. It's easy to become lost, not knowing where to go, and sometimes, those awakening experiences can leave us feeling disoriented or even out of control. This is why understanding the difference between stages and states is so crucial. Stages are a continuous process of development and growth in spirituality, while states are moments of awakening that can happen suddenly at any time. It's the combination of both elements that forms the key to achieving a stable and lasting enlightenment. So, is the path to enlightenment really an easy journey? Can you go through it without facing any challenges? This will be explained in more detail in this video. While the 7 stages of spiritual development may be challenging, we will also explore real-life stories, examples, and practical advice from those who have walked this path. So, if you are seeking peace of mind, if you want to understand yourself better, and embark on your spiritual journey, don't miss this video. Join me on this journey, and together let's explore each stage on the path to enlightenment and spiritual freedom. Part 2. Human and Spiritual Development. When we talk about development, we're not only talking about physical growth, but also about spiritual and mental growth. This development is not random. It's a continuous process that unfolds step by step, with each step having a profound impact on the entire being. The difference between stages and states. To understand this development more clearly, we need to distinguish between stages and states. Developmental stages are the ongoing process a person goes through throughout their life. Each stage involves not only physical changes but also emotional, mental, and behavioral shifts. For example, a child from 0 to 7 years old will go through the individuation stage, a period of forming personal identity, gradually separating from the mother and the surrounding world, learning to perceive and integrate with society. However, states are sudden moments, powerful spiritual experiences that one can have without necessarily going through a developmental stage. The state of enlightenment, for example, can come at any time, in any circumstance. It might occur when you are meditating, or sometimes in very ordinary moments, like when you're watching a sunset, or when you find a moment of profound stillness in a difficult situation. Developmental models of humans. Many psychologists and researchers around the world have proposed models to help us better understand this development. For instance, Jean Piaget, one of the famous psychologists, divided children's developmental process into stages, from sensorimotor stages to abstract thinking. Or Abraham Maslow, who created the hierarchy of needs, suggested that humans must satisfy basic needs such as food and shelter before they can reach spiritual development and self-actualization. Spiritual development through stages. However, spiritual development follows a distinct path, unlike physical or intellectual development. While people can develop their intellect and social skills through different stages, spiritual growth requires navigating through various challenges and self-discovery. To achieve enlightenment, one must go through several stages, each with its own trials and difficulties, requiring patience, effort, and sometimes self-acceptance. For example, the stage of surrender, letting go of the ego, may come late in life. It's the stage where a person must accept the truth about themselves, the world, and their relationship with the universe. It's about letting go, no longer resisting, no longer fighting against reality. Some may reach this stage early, while others may need much more time to understand and practice this surrender. Another significant stage on the spiritual journey is the death of the ego. This is when one experiences the sensation of losing their sense of self, feeling no longer as a separate I. This can cause psychological crises, as we are so accustomed to identifying ourselves through ego, through our roles and social relationships. However, when the ego dissolves, one may experience a state of absolute freedom, a state where there is no distinction, no separation between me and the universe. Connecting stages and states. While each stage can be seen as an important step in the spiritual path, states can arise unexpectedly and do not necessarily follow a specific order. A person might experience an enlightenment state even if they haven't fully passed through all the spiritual stages. This is evident in Buddhist traditions, especially Zen, where there are two main paths, gradual enlightenment and sudden enlightenment. While the gradual path requires long-term practice, with each step carefully nurtured, the sudden path is marked by sudden moments of awakening, where one suddenly realizes the truth about themselves and the universe without needing prior preparation. Challenges and the need for maturity. It's important to note that although the state of enlightenment can come unexpectedly, psychological and spiritual maturity is crucial in sustaining and understanding this state. For example, in the Advaita Vedanta tradition, one can only recognize and maintain an enlightened state if they have gone through psychological and moral development. If someone lacks maturity, they might not fully comprehend the meaning of enlightenment, or they might even experience spiritual crisis. We need to understand that enlightenment is not a destination, but a continuous process. Each stage and state plays an essential role in forming and nurturing a complete and integrated person. When we realize this, our spiritual journey won't just be about seeking enlightenment, but also about becoming the best version of ourselves. Conclusion. Human and spiritual development is a long journey, requiring patience, effort, and openness to change. Although the path may have many challenges, once you understand the relationship between developmental stages and spiritual states, you'll be able to stay on track and avoid getting lost. Remember, every step you take, whether slow or fast, contributes to the person you are today, and this development will guide you closer to enlightenment. Part 2. The story of Suzanne Siegel, from the death of the ego to spiritual freedom. Suzanne Siegel's story is a vivid testament to the profound spiritual transformation that can occur when a person lets go of the ego, leading to true freedom in the soul. Suzanne was an American woman living in Paris who experienced a deep awakening at the age of 30. Her story is not just a simple spiritual journey but a clear demonstration of the death of the ego that had been attached to her for years. But when this ego died, something far deeper awakened within her, granting Suzanne the spiritual freedom she had never found through any other form of practice or psychology. The beginning, strange sensations and mental transformations. Before her spiritual transformation, Suzanne Siegel lived a normal life, successful and stable. She worked at a psychology research institute in Paris and had a stable relationship. However, in 1981, when she was 30 years old, Suzanne began to experience strange changes in her mind and body. Everything began when Suzanne suddenly felt as though she no longer was herself. She could no longer feel her ego, and it seemed as though her sense of self had dissolved into the vastness of the universe. At first, she thought this was just a temporary state or a normal fatigue, but gradually, the sensation became more intense and clear. Suzanne began to feel that she was no longer a separate individual but rather just a part of the vast universe. She could no longer identify herself with her thoughts, emotions, or body. This left her confused and anxious, as everything around her had changed. She could not find the cause and couldn't determine whether it was a mental illness or just a symptom of stress. These sensations slowly disconnected her from the world around her, and she became lost within herself. The death of the ego, a pivotal moment. One day, while sitting in a cafe in Paris, Suzanne unexpectedly entered a state she called the death of the ego. She no longer perceived herself as a separate entity. The concept of the ego, her sense of self, suddenly vanished. There was no longer any feeling of, I am doing this, or any sense of self. Everything became a state of undifferentiated unity. This was not a negative feeling, but rather an extremely peaceful and serene experience. Suzanne described it as complete liberation from all worries, pain, and stress. She no longer saw herself as a self in society, free from the constraints of societal roles and identities. Everything became clear, and she felt a deep connection with the entire universe. Discovering spiritual freedom. After this experience, Suzanne was no longer the same person. She no longer felt dominated by her everyday thoughts and emotions. The peace in her soul seemed unshakable, regardless of any external events or circumstances. She realized that the feelings of ego, of self-identity, were mere illusions that we create in order to survive in this material world. Suzanne began to explore the teachings of Buddhism, especially the concepts of non-self and enlightenment. She realized that it is our attachment to the ego that is the source of all suffering and turmoil in life. The ego, the illusion of self, is a construct we create to feel safe in this chaotic world. But when we realize that the ego is just an illusion, everything changes. One thing Suzanne discovered is that while we live in this world, we always feel a separation between ourselves and others, between the self and the world. But when the ego dissolves, all this separation disappears, and we feel a deep connection with everything around us. We no longer live within the confinement of our own sense of self but open ourselves to unite with all. Acceptance and living with enlightenment. Suzanne's story shows us that enlightenment is not something distant or unattainable. It is a very real experience that can happen at any time, anywhere. Sometimes, enlightenment comes from moments of stillness, from times when we accept the truth about ourselves and the universe without resistance or discrimination. Enlightenment is not a destination, but an ongoing process, a deep understanding of the nature of existence. Suzanne proved that when we let go of the ego, when we no longer cling to the identities we assign to ourselves, we can attain true spiritual freedom. And this freedom does not only bring us peace but allows us to view the world in an entirely new way, without distinction, without anxiety or suffering. Conclusion. Suzanne Siegel's story is a powerful reminder that in this life, we can find spiritual freedom and enlightenment not from the outside, but from within. When we let go of the ego, when we recognize that everything is an illusion, we can live a life of true freedom and peace, no longer bound by worries or fears. Suzanne went through a challenging journey, but it was one full of meaning and liberation, and we, each of us, can walk this path too. Part 3. The Stages of Spiritual Development. The path of spiritual development is a long journey, full of challenges but also beauty and wonder. Each of us can experience different stages on this path, with each stage bringing its own lessons and awakening. However, not everyone realizes that spiritual growth is not something extraordinary or mystical, only attainable by a select few. In reality, each stage of spiritual development is a natural process that can happen to anyone, at any time, as long as we open our hearts and are willing to learn. So, what are the stages of spiritual development? Let's explore each step of this journey, from simple beginnings to the profound awakening of enlightenment. 1. The stage of seeking, the beginning of discovery. Every spiritual journey begins from a place we can't always recognize immediately. It's a moment in life when we begin to feel an inner emptiness, a longing for something greater, something more meaningful in life. This stage often arises when we face significant challenges, suffering, or loss. It is the time when some people begin searching for answers to the big questions about life, the nature of reality, and who we truly are. In this stage, we may feel uncertain, as though something is missing from our lives, yet we don't know where to find it. We may begin to experiment with methods like meditation, yoga, or attending self-development workshops. This is when the mind starts to open up, realizing that life is more than what we can see and touch. 2. The stage of awakening, realizing who we truly are. After some time of searching, some individuals enter the stage of awakening, where we begin to realize the true nature of ourselves. This stage isn't always clear-cut or easy. It may be a sudden, awakening moment, or it can be a gradual process over many years. In this stage, we begin to perceive the reality more deeply, understanding the connection between ourselves and the world around us. We realize that we are not separate entities, but inseparable parts of the universe. We come to understand that the ego, the self, we have constructed and clung to throughout our lives, is just an illusion, a mental structure created by society and ourselves. We are no longer bound by our own limitations, and we feel a deep connection with everything around us. However, this stage also brings challenges. We may feel internal conflict, as if we're losing a part of ourselves. The old values we've trusted may begin to crumble, leaving us confused about what to do next. 3. The stage of letting go, releasing old attachments. Once we've realized the ego is an illusion, the next stage in spiritual development is letting go. This is one of the hardest but most crucial stages on the path to enlightenment. Letting go isn't just about relinquishing bad habits or negative elements in life, but also about releasing the old ideas and beliefs we hold about ourselves. This stage may manifest in various forms. We might let go of toxic relationships, negative emotions, or even long-held goals and ambitions. Letting go is not about giving up, it's about liberation. We release the invisible burdens we've been carrying for years. However, letting go isn't always easy. We may fear and feel anxious about losing a part of ourselves, or worry that we are losing everything. But in reality, it is this very letting go that brings spiritual freedom, freeing us from the shackles of the ego and bringing us closer to enlightenment. 4. The stage of meditation and inner silence. Once we've released old attachments, the next stage in spiritual development is finding meditation and inner stillness. Meditation is not only a method for reducing stress, but also a powerful tool that helps us connect more deeply with our inner being, with the soul and the truth of the universe. This stage requires us to maintain mindfulness in every moment, learning to observe thoughts without getting caught up in them, and breathing steadily to stabilize the mind. It's a time when we can reach absolute tranquility, where the soul is no longer disturbed by external waves. We experience peace within ourselves and realize that true happiness doesn't come from outside but is an inner state that we can access at any time. 5. The stage of enlightenment, attaining spiritual freedom. Finally, the last stage in the path of spiritual development is enlightenment, a state in which we attain true spiritual freedom. In this stage, we are no longer bound by the ego. There is no distinction between ourselves and the world. Everything becomes clear and transparent, and we feel complete harmony with the universe. Enlightenment is not a destination but a state of deep understanding and eternal awareness. In this stage, we no longer suffer or worry because we understand the nature of existence and accept all that comes and goes in life. We are no longer influenced by external fluctuations but live in a state of perpetual peace and freedom. Conclusion. The path of spiritual development is a never-ending process. Each stage brings valuable lessons that bring us closer to inner freedom and enlightenment. Although this path can be challenging and not always easy, it is a worthwhile journey because it leads us to harmony and eternal peace in life. Part 4. Challenges and obstacles in the spiritual journey. The spiritual path, although it brings peace, enlightenment, and inner freedom, is not without its challenges and obstacles. At times, this process can leave us feeling exhausted, lost, or even directionless. On the journey toward awakening, we not only face external challenges but also fight against our own inner struggles. These challenges may come from many sources, from our environment, from relationships, and sometimes, from the illusions and false beliefs we have nurtured for so long. Let's take a look at some of the biggest challenges one might encounter on their spiritual journey. 1. Exhaustion and discouragement. One of the first and most common challenges in spiritual development is exhaustion and discouragement. In the early stages of the journey, you might feel as if you're not making any progress, that all your efforts to find peace and enlightenment are in vain. The truth is, spiritual development is a long journey, not something that happens overnight. You will face many difficult stages, which may include moments when it feels like you're repeating the same steps with no tangible progress. This feeling can easily cause you to hesitate and give up on the path you've chosen. It's important to recognize that exhaustion and discouragement are natural parts of the process. This is when you're confronting your inner challenges, when your mind and heart are testing and questioning what you truly believe. These moments are not signs of failure but opportunities to reflect, renew your determination, and continue on your journey. 2. The resistance of the ego. Another major challenge is the resistance of the ego, the self we have constructed throughout our lives. When you begin your spiritual journey and try to let go of the illusions of who you think you are, the ego will not easily release its grip on you. It will resist strongly, trying to pull you back into old habits and values you've held for years. This resistance can manifest in many forms. At times, you may experience negative thoughts and emotions such as fear, anxiety, or low self-esteem. The ego will create excuses to keep you in old habits, making you feel as though you're doing something wrong or that you cannot make the significant changes you desire in your life. It's this very resistance that causes many people to abandon their spiritual journey, not because they can't continue, but because the ego has created so much internal conflict and suffering in their minds. In reality, the ego is just an illusion, but it can create very strong and challenging emotions. The key is to be patient and understand that every time the ego resists change, you are getting closer to true spiritual awakening. 3. Solitude and isolation. The spiritual path is often not an easy one, and at times, you may feel alone and disconnected from those around you. You may face a lack of understanding from your loved ones or feel isolated in a society that doesn't share the same spiritual values you are pursuing. This isolation can become painful, especially when you begin letting go of old beliefs and viewpoints. Old relationships and familiar environments may no longer align with your new way of thinking, and you will have to learn to stand on your own during this journey. The feeling of loneliness can lead to confusion, especially when you can't find others around you who can share or empathize with your experience. However, this isolation can also be an essential part of spiritual growth. It is during moments of solitude that we can look deeper within ourselves and discover new depths. This is when you learn to connect with your own inner being, not through judgment or validation from others, but through self-awareness and mindfulness. 4. Facing negative emotions. When you begin your spiritual journey, you'll inevitably confront negative emotions that may have been suppressed or overlooked in the past. These emotions can include anger, sadness, regret, guilt, or fear. These emotions are not signs of failure but opportunities to heal old wounds and confront them head-on. Confronting negative emotions is a crucial part of spiritual growth. When you practice meditation or other spiritual methods, these emotions may surface like a powerful wave, making you feel uncomfortable. However, instead of rejecting or avoiding them, you need to learn to accept and experience them, which will ultimately help you release them from your psyche. This is when you realize that true healing does not come from trying to eliminate negative emotions but from learning to live in harmony with everything that arises within your mind and body. 5. Lack of patience and expectation for quick results. Another challenge is impatience. Once you begin your spiritual journey and yearn for peace and enlightenment, you might feel confused because you don't see immediate results. The spiritual path does not have a fixed timeline, and you cannot succeed overnight. The desire for quick results and the lack of patience are some of the main reasons why many people give up. However, understanding that spiritual growth is a continuous process with no fixed endpoint will help you become more patient. Every small step you take has meaning, and this journey is one of gradual accumulation, not sudden change. Conclusion. While the spiritual path is filled with challenges and obstacles, these challenges are valuable opportunities for us to grow and mature. The difficulties we encounter along the way are not barriers, but valuable lessons that help us transcend our limitations and achieve true spiritual awakening. Part 5. Ken Wilber's Integral Theory, Integration of States and Stages. Ken Wilber, one of the renowned philosophers and theorists in the fields of spirituality and human development, has developed a prominent integrated model that combines psychological, philosophical, and spiritual elements into a cohesive system. Wilber's theory, known as the integral theory, is built upon the combination of two key components, states and stages. Both play essential roles in human spiritual development. 1. States and stages, the basic differences. Before diving into Wilber's theory, it is important to understand the fundamental difference between states and stages in spiritual development. States are the temporary psychological and consciousness experiences that a person can experience at any given moment. These may include states of awakening, meditative states, moments of enlightenment, or states of inner peace. States are temporary shifts and can change rapidly depending on circumstances, environment, and the individual's consciousness. These states can be reached through practices such as meditation, mindfulness, or other self-awareness techniques. Stages refer to long-term and continuous levels of spiritual development. These stages are the progressive evolutions of consciousness, in which a person undergoes profound and lasting changes in how they perceive the world and themselves. Unlike stages are not temporary changes but long-term developments, which can span years or even a lifetime. Each stage represents a higher level of awareness, a deeper understanding of the nature of reality. In Wilber's theory, both states and stages are important but play different roles and functions in the spiritual journey. 2. Ken Wilber's Integral Theory. Ken Wilber presents an integrated model in which he combines elements from various disciplines such as science, psychology, philosophy, and religion to create a comprehensive view of human spiritual development. Wilber argues that spiritual development is not only a journey towards enlightenment or spiritual freedom but also a holistic evolution of the human being, encompassing the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions. In his model, Wilber divides the process of development into clear stages, ranging from the most basic stages of human existence, referred to as pre-transcendent stages, to the highest stages of enlightenment. He also acknowledges that various states of consciousness can play a crucial role in helping a person progress in their spiritual journey. 3. Integration of states and stages. In Wilber's model, the integration of states and stages is a key component of the spiritual process. Every stage of development brings with it new states of consciousness, new experiences of the self and the world around. However, to progress to a higher stage, one must first experience the specific states that each stage demands. For example, in the early stages of spiritual development, a person may only experience simple states of meditation or tranquility, and from these experiences, they begin to recognize the existence of a deeper self within. As the person progresses, they move into higher stages where they not only experience stillness but also face and reconcile the challenges of life, which in turn provide them with a more profound understanding of the nature of reality. Wilber recognized that no one can reach enlightenment simply through the experience of deep meditative states without progressing through the stages of spiritual development. Therefore, a person cannot reach spiritual freedom merely by experiencing certain states of meditation or enlightenment without moving through the corresponding stages of growth. 4. Stages of spiritual development according to Wilber. Wilber divides the process of spiritual development into several stages, from the most basic stages to the highest stages of enlightenment. Each of these stages brings profound changes in a person's perception and understanding of the world. Below are some of the basic stages in Wilber's theory. Pre-transcendent stage, pre-trans. This is the stage where a person is not yet aware of the existence of a deeper self, and life is mainly driven by material and emotional needs. In this stage, a person may be living primarily by instinct and has not yet recognized the connection between spirituality and the material world. Transpersonal stage. In this stage, a person begins to recognize the existence of a higher self, experiencing states of meditation and inner stillness. They start seeking enlightenment and spiritual freedom and realize that life is more than what is seen or heard by the senses. This is the stage where one starts to expand beyond the ego and begins searching for the deeper truth of existence. Enlightenment stage. This is the stage where a person achieves the highest level of awakening, where they recognize the non-self nature of existence, and the distinctions between self and other dissolve. Enlightenment is not just a mental state, it is a complete transformation in how one perceives and experiences the world. 5. The integrative nature, Wilber's theory as a holistic model. One of the special features of Wilber's theory is its integrative nature, the combination of different factors to create a holistic picture of spiritual development. According to Wilber, both states and stages play a crucial and complementary role, forming a continuous progression. Wilber's model goes beyond a narrow focus on one particular area of life. It integrates various aspects, the physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. This helps us understand that spiritual development is not simply a linear or isolated path but rather a comprehensive system where all elements are interconnected to lead to ultimate freedom and awakening. 6. Conclusion. Ken Wilber's integral theory provides a profound insight into the process of human spiritual development. The integration of states and stages not only helps us better understand the spiritual journey but also helps us realize that spiritual growth is a continuous process with no end. Throughout this journey, each state and each stage plays an important role in helping us move closer to enlightenment and inner freedom. Part 6. The final lesson. Finally, after all the discussions on the stages and states of the spiritual journey, we arrive at the most important lesson. All that we've learned about human and spiritual development serves one main purpose: to help us gain a clearer understanding of ourselves, life, and the universe. 1. The journey of development is a process without an endpoint. One of the first lessons on the spiritual path is understanding that development is not a specific endpoint. This is not a race to achieve something great, but rather an ongoing journey of learning and experience. While some people may think that enlightenment is the end of the journey, the truth is that enlightenment is not an endpoint, it's a state of being that is continuously lived. Enlightenment is not about reaching a state that you have and hold forever, but about recognizing the true nature of all things and existence. Realizing that everything is part of this wholeness will shift how we engage with life every day. 2. Transformation starts from within. The second important lesson is that transformation begins from within. While the outside world provides us with opportunities and challenges, real change only comes when we realize that everything starts with internal change. This can involve re-evaluating beliefs, habits, and automatic reactions we have when facing difficult situations. In order to transform, we must have the courage to face ourselves, accept our flaws and imperfections, and then begin to change. This is not an easy path, and there will be many challenges, but these very challenges are opportunities for learning and growth. 3. Enlightenment is a natural state. One of the key insights we gain from studying spiritual theories is that enlightenment is not something distant or hard to achieve. On the contrary, enlightenment is a natural state, already present within each of us. It is not something we need to attain, but rather something we need to recognize. It is like opening a door and letting the natural light come in. Enlightenment is the awareness of the true nature of existence, returning to ourselves. We do not need to search for some external paradise, because the true paradise is already within us. However, to realize this, we must transcend the barriers of the mind, letting go of false beliefs and mistaken ideas that we've constructed throughout our lives. 4. The integration of states and stages. Another important lesson in the spiritual journey is the recognition of the integration of states and stages. As mentioned earlier, states and stages are two inseparable components in spiritual development. They interact with each other, helping us move through developmental stages and towards higher states. If we only focus on experiencing states like meditation or enlightenment without progressing through the stages of human growth, we cannot sustain those states for long. Conversely, if we focus solely on developing through stages without experiencing spiritual states, we miss out on the deeper dimensions of the journey. 5. The importance of self-awareness and mindfulness. Finally, the most important lesson may be cultivating self-awareness and mindfulness in everyday life. When we can clearly perceive every event in life without being controlled by emotions or negative thoughts, we begin to see that everything in life is part of the great flow. Nothing is random, everything has its reason and purpose. Mindfulness helps us live fully in each moment, without clinging to the past or worrying about the future. Paying attention to what is happening right now is the key to unlocking enlightenment. When we live with mindfulness, we no longer feel anxious or fearful about what will happen because we realize that everything is part of the continuous transformation of the universe. 6. Embracing freedom in difficulty. The final lesson might be embracing freedom within difficulty. The spiritual path is not an easy one. It is filled with challenges, hardship, and sometimes pain. Yet, it is in these moments of difficulty that we can find true freedom. When we face challenges, we not only overcome them but also learn how to free ourselves from attachment to thoughts, emotions, and uncontrollable events. This freedom is not freedom from difficulty, but freedom within difficulty. When you can live freely in times of suffering, you have truly entered the path of enlightenment. You will realize that nothing can take away your inner peace because you have learned to let go of everything, from thoughts to emotions, and remain fully present with life. Part 7. Finally, after exploring the stages and states of the spiritual journey together, it's time for you to ask yourself, what will I do next? The most important thing is to apply what you've learned to real life. Spirituality is not just an abstract concept to admire, it's a powerful tool that helps us live a more meaningful, fulfilled, and liberated life. So, are you ready to begin your own journey? Are you ready to dedicate time each day to connect deeply with yourself, to practice mindfulness, and to meditate? This may not be an easy path, but it's through the challenges and difficulties that you will grow and uncover the hidden potential within yourself. Start with small, consistent steps. 1 minute of mindfulness each day, a few minutes of meditation every morning, or simply taking time to listen to your inner voice. You may not notice immediate change, but over time, you will feel the shift within. As you stay persistent and practice every day, you'll become more aware of your true nature and the world around you. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, share it, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next videos. And if you have any questions or would like to share your thoughts on the spiritual journey, feel free to leave a comment below the video. We are always here to listen and support you along the way. Thank you for watching. I hope what you've learned today will serve as a solid foundation for you to move closer to enlightenment and spiritual freedom. Wishing you a meaningful and peaceful journey ahead.